Yo, Derek Parker, DP here. We have our third mock of the 2025 NBA draft cycle on the first day of the NCAA tournament. It is about 2:30 a.m. where I'm at, so I've worked pretty hard to get this out on time. If this interests you at all, please drop a sub, a like, whatever you can. It really does help me to make more stuff like this. We'll have more of these dropping after the tournament, after the NBA season. Go ahead and watch my scouting report series. I've got 5 or so of those out right now. So yeah, without further ado, Mock Draft 3.0. Here at number 1, we have the obvious and easy pick in selecting Duke's Cooper Flagg to the Washington Wizards. I'm on record saying I've liked what Washington has done under their new regime. Bilal Coulibaly, Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George, lengthy, positionally versatile pieces, and Cooper Flagg embodies every sense of that with star-level two-way play. He had an injury scare in the ACC tournament, but there will be no dethroning him from number 1 at this point. His averages in box plus minus of nearly 17 for a true freshman are flat out ridiculous, and he's one of a few freshman prospects that I'd actually bet on making a deep March Madness run. A guy like Flagg immediately raises both the floor and ceiling of your squad, and he'd likely add tangible wins for the Wizards as early as next year. If they could land a star guard prospect in 26, I think they'd be a team to be feared moving forward. At number 2, we have the Charlotte Hornets, who continue to get fairly lucky in these simulations. This was a tough decision, and it wasn't. Dylan Harper isn't a great on-paper fit, but ultimately I think he's too far ahead of the next best prospect to pass up on. We've ran into this exact scenario before. The Hornets have the number 2 pick. The best available player seemingly is a guard, but LaMelo Ball is their franchise piece. And while they previously made the right decision in selecting Brandon Miller in 2023, they've essentially seen no real progress with LaMelo at the helm since then. There's some early rumblings that the newest Hornets regime, which was put in place just over a year ago, might not love Ball as the centerpiece and instead wants to build towards the future with high upside swings that offer positional versatility a la Miller, Salone, and more. All that to say, if the Hornets were presented with Harper at number 2, who offers those things and a potential new franchise cornerstone to lead the way, I feel like they might take it. At 3rd overall, we have one of the biggest winners from our simulation, the San Antonio Spurs, who would in this scenario snag their 3rd straight top 5 pick by jumping 6 spots. This is an essential doomsday scenario for the rest of the league. I considered a few different options here, a two-way force in Edgecombe, the ever-elite scorer in Trey Johnson, but ultimately it's just too tantalizing to pair Victor Wembanyama with 6'10" wing Ace Bailey. I haven't been necessarily shy about me being lower on Bailey than the consensus, but this is a dream scenario for the Rutgers wing, who would join a team ripe with gravity and playmakers. To this point, Bailey struggles with handling, passing, and consistent defense, all things the Spurs have in bounds already, and his pluses like shot making, transition play, and weak side defense mesh seamlessly. This is a perfect and very scary fit here. At number 4, we have the Brooklyn Nets, who appear to be undergoing a shortened rebuild where they grab swing picks for the next few drafts before buying a win-now core via market size. Not really how I'd go about it personally, but to each their own. With that in mind, I've gambled on Baylor hybrid VJ Edgecombe for Brooklyn, who I think offers a high ceiling, blank slate prospect, and one that could be valuable in numerous areas. At around 6'5", Edgecombe is a guard/wing with good athleticism, who can thrive on both sides of the ball, but is a tweener in a few suspect areas. He'll need some real development to be a go-to scoring option, but offers tantalizing defense. This isn't a horrible option to kick off your rebuild with, as Edgecombe at the end of the day just oozes positive impact and immense potential. At number 5, we have the Utah Jazz grabbing Texas guard Trey Johnson, probably a unique pick as far as most mocks go, but one that I like. In the last few years, Utah has gambled again and again in lower tier spots, hoping to nab star power later than they should have. And while picks can always be gambles, there's little guesswork around Trey Johnson's scoring. I think Collier's shown the potential to be a lead guard in year 1, with improved scoring and better than anticipated passing skill. You've got a few project forwards already in Williams and Hendricks. I don't mind taking an essential sure thing here in Johnson, who would likely immediately be one of the most talented bucket getters on the squad. At 6, we have the New Orleans Pelicans grabbing Illinois guard Kasparas Jakučionis, by all accounts a perfect fit. At 6'5", Jakučionis is a ball-dominant guard who can wear out the pick and roll and table set for others with ambitious passing. His scoring has been spotty at times, but he's shown the ability to do so at all 3 levels at various points in the year. The Pelicans have need of a lead guard, especially one that can create for others, and I think Jakučionis fits well in that respect. Additionally, I really believe in his future as a 3-point shooter, and I think Zion and Co.'s ability ability to play on the ball could open that avenue for him sooner than expected. Jalkuchonis is a little more on the projecty side, but I really believe he has one of the higher ceilings in this class and isn't leagues behind Harper in a few areas. At 7, we have another winner, with Oklahoma City nabbing the 76ers first round pick that's top 6 protected, of course here at number 7. It's no secret the Thunder are number 1 in the West by a large margin, and their general draft philosophy moving forward with this massive cache of draft picks will be to use the players drafted as somewhat of a backfill when the contracts of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, and Jalen Williams get too hefty. With that in mind, I've drafted Duke wing Con Knipple to OKC. At 6'7", he's likely most coveted for his shooting and general scoring, but he's an exceptionally versatile piece with a high IQ, passing and playmaking chops, and sneaky defense. Knipple can play the 2, the 3, he can handle the ball and initiate the pick and roll. He's just a player I could see thriving in OKC's core in a variety of areas for the foreseeable future. At number 8, we have the Toronto Raptors swinging on Duke center Kamon Malawach. Ideally for the organization and fans, they landed higher and swing bigger, but in this range, I think Malawach is a perfectly respectable pick. At a legit 7'2", Malawach is the next in line of these unnaturally long true centers who offer some staunch rim protection, nice play finishing, and a dash of modernity. He can defend well in space, has the potential to stretch out on offense, and just generally is a decent high floor, high ceiling pick in the front court. The Raptors have used the offensive-minded Jakob Poeltl for a while now, and this could be a major shift before they make a run at this thing in the coming years. 9th overall, we have the still rebuilding Portland Trail Blazers, who are now several drafts deep and armed with improving prospects like Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, Donovan Clingan, and more. Here we've grabbed Georgia forward Asa Newell, who's been such a consistent two-way force in his lone collegiate season with 15 points, 7 rebounds, and a block and steal apiece. He's got impeccable touch around the rim and some good indicators that point towards long-term potential as a stretch big or legit 4. This isn't some flashy, massive swing, but the Trailblazers would be certainly adding a good basketball prospect here, and one that fills a variety of needs like length, weak side defense, finishing, and more. At 10, we have a pick I've made before, but one that I feel pretty strongly about in adding one of the top late lottery swings to a team in desperate need of talent in general. Jeremiah Fears is the second youngest player in the class, only behind projected top pick Cooper Flagg, and offers a ridiculous ceiling as a lead guard with high-octane scoring and passing and playmaking flashes. It's pretty abnormal for a 17/18-year-old to average 17 points per game with 4 assists and 4 rebounds apiece, especially in the best basketball conference in the country, and he shows off legitimately pro stuff on a nightly basis for the Sooners. With the Bulls, Fears would offer a new focal point for the organization to pour into in the coming years. Just outside the top 10, we have the Miami Heat taking a tried and true wing contributor in St. Joe's Rasheer Fleming. At 6'9" with a reportedly massive wingspan, Fleming has flown up draft boards with 15 points on 40% three-point shooting, along with 8 rebounds and 3 stocks per game in his 3rd season. The Heat are typically able to continually reload at the NBA draft, and I like Fleming as a wing pick who could see the court as early as next year and see a long career with solid athleticism, shooting, and defense. I do think at some point Miami's going to need to take risks at the NBA draft, but based off some of the options floating around this range, I'm fine with a solid baseline selection. 12th overall, we have the playoffs-bound Houston Rockets picking in the lottery via the fading Phoenix Suns, who have some decisions to make in the upcoming offseason. With the pick, I've drafted Georgetown big Thomas Sorber to the Rockets. Ideally, Houston adds shooting in the offseason. Let's say for the sake of this video, they either trade or sign that firepower and take a project big in the draft. Sorber's highly interesting, boasting such a high floor in so many areas with 14 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, and 1.5 steals in his freshman season with the Hoyas. Rockets star Alperen Sengun has shown some really interesting double big stuff with Steven Adams, and I think Sorber offers a potential long-term pairing that is so versatile and could even come around long-term in areas like stretching the floor, passing and playmaking, and more. At number 13, we have the now decimated Dallas Mavericks, who could soon be forfeiting games after trading off Luka Doncic with an absolute laundry list of an injury report. Dallas fans desperately need good news in any capacity, and I think grabbing Maryland's Derek Queen in the late lottery could be just that. He's a talented 5-star true freshman who's led the Terrapins to their best season in years, averaging 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists. Queen's a really interesting and unique prospect, coming from that same school of big playmaker as guys like Domantas Sabonis, Alperen Şengün, but hosting the same issues too. I think Queen's future in the NBA is likely as a 4 alongside a rim-protecting stretch 5, and the Mavericks just acquired one of the best in the league in those regards in Anthony Davis. Rounding out the lottery are the Atlanta Hawks, taking a chance on South Carolina Swiss Army knife Colin Murray-Boyles. A sophomore who had draft interest last year, CMB has more than backed up those claims with a strong sophomore season. He's been one of the highest impact players in the best conference in basketball, and despite a real unorthodox style, all signs point to him being an impactful future pro. Atlanta is somewhat stuck in NBA purgatory right now, barring some massive development from Zachary Riza-Shea, so I like somewhat of a middle ground pick here between a pure role player or some massive gamble. I think at 6'7", CMB offers immediate pluses like defense, passing, transition scoring, and rebounding, and could eventually add more in the ways of perimeter shooting, slashing, and more down the line. Kicking off the post-lottery is the Orlando Magic, who have seen a topsy-turvy season, looking both like a postseason and lottery-bound team amidst various stints between injury this year. The Magic are the worst three-point shooting team in the league. By far, they shoot a measly 31% from beyond the arc, and with fairly heliocentric stars in Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, ranged shooting will be key to their future contention. Here we've drafted wing Liam McNeely, who projects to be one of the better connective shooting prospects in this draft. He's got positional size at 6'7", and while his shooting numbers weren't blistering in his lone season at UConn, he's got great form, shot great volume, and adds in a few other areas too. The fully realized version of McNeely would be a huge boon to the Magic's core. After grabbing a perfect fit in Ace Bailey at number 4, the Spurs are back on the clock here, this time via the Atlanta Hawks pick. I know that people are itching for San Antonio to return to contention as soon as possible, but I'd preach just a little bit of patience given the team's superstar is still just 21 years old. I love a gamble for San Antonio, and Igor Demon is the gamble of all gambles. A forward with guard skills is often overused. Demon is a legit 6'9" with guard skills, most notably some of the best passing in the class. He's of the Josh Giddey mold, not boasting athleticism or the prettiest ranged shot, but he has truly elite feel while passing and playmaking, especially out of the pick and roll. There are a dozen of developmental paths for Demon: a jumbo point guard, be it from the starting lineup or the bench, a connective wing, a high feel forward. Every single one of those would be perfect for Victor Wembanyama, and potentially getting all this for just a gamble at 16 is well worth the risk in my mind. At 17, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves, previously thought of to be a Western contender before some less than sparkly trades that have left them in the middle of the West. They continue to have really solid bigs and wings, including their superstar in Anthony Edwards. So despite their trading up and drafting of Rob Dillingham last year, I've again gone with a combo guard here in Michigan State's Jace Richardson. A 6'3" guard, Richardson has had an interesting case this year. Not thought of to be a high-profile draft guy as a true freshman, but seeing a huge rise on mocks and boards through the year. In his last 11 games, he scored 17.3 points, with 4.8 rebounds and 1.7 assists to boot. He's a little bit of an awkward fit just generally, probably positionally shying more towards a do-it-all shooting guard despite his being 6'3", but there's no denying his overall talent, his good floor, and I think he could excel in this Wolves core. After lucking out and landing the number 7 pick, the Thunder pick here at 18 via the Clippers, grabbing a project forward in Ratio Farm Ulm's Noah Essenge. At 6'9", Essenge is the next in line of spindly project forwards who boast exceptionally high ceilings but pretty low floors. He's a fluid mover who can handle for his size, but is prone to lapses on both ends of the floor. I have a hard time seeing OKC taking and keeping 2 firsts in this draft, but Essenge makes plenty of sense as a project wing to stash in the G League, in hopes of him developing into a lengthy and positionally versatile wing who can fill in gaps in the lineup a few years from now. At 19, we have the Brooklyn Nets' second pick, this time cashing in on the Bucks' first and taking a gamble on French point guard Nolan Traore. Prior to the season, Traore was thought of to be one of the 5 franchise-changing players in this cycle, along with some of the names at the top of this draft. He's had a rougher year than anticipated, but has still flashed some of what scouts initially saw as a do-it-all point guard who can score, pass, and more. He boasts double-digit points in a great pro league, albeit on bad shooting splits, as well as a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio at 5 to 2.3. And most recently, he's flashed that potential with some really great performances. Being an essential blank slate, the Nets can afford to take one of the highest potential players in this class at number 19, especially given Traore is a player who could be handed the offensive reins for the next few years to learn and grow. At number 20, we have the Indiana Pacers grabbing Project Wing Carter Bryant, a player who's sneaking under mocks right now as a potential high-impact guy down the line. Bryant hasn't seen a flashy statistical season, but is such an easy bet as a player who's A, gonna improve real soon, and B, contribute positively in the NBA. The Pacers admittedly have an abundance of forwards and wings, but none quite like what Bryant could offer if he pans out long term. It would likely take a few years for him to find his stride in Indiana, but he could potentially be a lethal combination next to Hallie and co. With the 21st pick, the Jazz again select, this time via Minnesota, and they'll grab a do-it-all wing / jumbo guard in Ben Saraf. Utah's already landed Trey Johnson in this mock. Here they land a 6'6" guard in Saraf who can do a bit of everything. Score, pass, handle, defend to some degree, shoot to some degree. He's got a sky-high ceiling if he can put all these things together at the next level. He's averaged 12.8 points, 4.6 assists, and 1.3 steals alongside Asenge for Ulm, and generally is one of the better international players in this class. Honestly, this is probably a bit low for him, despite being somewhat of a question mark positionally. The Jazz have some potentially talented ball handlers, albeit some pretty small ones, so grabbing an ancillary handler who has high feel in Saraf at 6'6" could be a viable move. Here we have the Miami Heat taking a shot on Colorado State guard Nick Clifford, a tweener guard wing who could be ready to make an NBA impact in day one. At 6'5", Clifford has been on draft radars for some time, but came back for his senior season to bolster his stock, and he did just that, averaging 19 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and over a steal per game. He's a stingy defender, but offers enough as a handler, shooter, and more on offense to potentially be a workable option at the next level. The Heat have been known to turn water into wine with late picks and upperclassmen, and Clifford could be just that, especially when you're already leaving with Fleming. The Hawks have already left with a defensive-minded forward / small ball center. Here we have them taking a project wing in Will Riley. A 6'8" true freshman, Riley saw a decent season with Illinois, averaging 12.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. But his value is tied to his potential as a lengthy, connective perimeter wing. There is some overlap here between Riley and last year's #1 pick, Zachary Riza-Shea, none of which I think is a necessarily bad thing alongside a great facilitator in Trae Young. Like others, he'd take a few years to find his footing, but a pick like this in the mid-20s could pay off tenfold for a middling team like Atlanta. Washington has already made off with the grand prize in Cooper Flagg, and they get another first rounder here from the Grizzlies, and they'll take a shot on Spanish guard Sergio De La Reyna. At 6'6", De La Reyna is a high-field jumbo guard, making his name in the ACB. He's a work in progress as a scorer and defender overall, but boasts a stellar passing game that's going to get him first-round looks. Should De La Reyna pan out as a prospect, he's exactly the type of guy who could potentially connect pieces like Flagg, Sarr, and Coulibaly together as a floor general with passing and playmaking, all while being positionally versatile at 6'6". Taking players like De La Reyna is often a risk, but one Washington should keep taking until they hit. So, the Nets have left with swing picks in Edgecombe and Traore already. I'm going to continue the trend in the later part of the first round, grabbing Spanish wing Hugo Gonzalez here. At 6'6", he trends more towards wing or connective forward with a nice frame, good athleticism, a solid handle, and tons of high basketball IQ and feel for the game. With Gonzalez, there's a ton of offensive refinement needed in order for him to have a clear NBA role. His shot needs to get better, he needs more consistent rim attacks, creation, but the bones are there of a potentially great player. And again, the Nets have ample time to continue developing players like this, be it into a long-term positive contributor or even a star. The Orlando Magic get a second first-round pick here at number 26, and just to stress how dire their shooting situation is, we've again gambled on that specific skill in taking our fourth Blue Devil, Isaiah Evans. Evans is a 6'6" freshman whose stat line isn't as sparkly as the other 5-star trio, boasting just under 15 minutes per game, but in those minutes he's shown real skill as a scorer and more specifically, a shooter. He scored 7.6 points on a white-hot 44% three-point shooting with great volume, mostly just doing that while offering little of anything else. Even still, the Magic need just that, and at 19 he stands to grow in other areas as he develops. And finally, with their fourth and final first-round pick, you guessed it, the Brooklyn Nets are back on the clock and gambling on Joan Behringer, a lengthy French big with a sky-high ceiling. Behringer is a highly mobile big with quick feet, fluid movement, and very solid athleticism, able to thrive in the pick and roll and slide around in open space on the defensive end of the court. He stands at around 6'9", 6'10"-ish, but has an insanely long wingspan and the verticality to make up for his... And finally, he'll still be 18 on draft night and could offer the Brooklyn Nets a long-term front court piece that continues to come into his own as a play finisher and versatile defensive piece with shot blocking and switching. At number 28, we have the defending champion Boston Celtics taking one of the bigger gambles of the draft in Michigan's Danny Wolf, a highly unique big. At 7 foot, Wolf plays more like a wing or even a point guard at times, scoring 13 points, coming down with 10 rebounds and dishing 3.7 assists to 3.3 turnovers. He's got a game that I'm on record saying I'm not totally sure will translate to the pros, but if I was betting on any singular team getting the most out of his specific skill set, it would be the Boston Celtics. The C's have already had some bigs with rather unorthodox skills like Kristaps, Horford, and more, and as a defensive-minded team, I have little doubt they could get the most out of Wolf. At number 29, we have the Los Angeles Clippers, who get the worst end of the swap with the Thunder, landing UAB's Yaxel Lindeborg, one of the top upperclassmen in the country. A senior, Lindeborg's in his second season with UAB, averaging 17.7 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and even 3.5 stocks per game. Just insane production. He stands at 6'9" and is a small forward, big hybrid, able to operate somewhat on the perimeter, but with more of a forceful interior punch than most. The Clippers feel a tad directionless at the moment, but I think Lindeborg is a player who would be able to see early minutes in the NBA, but is versatile enough on both ends to fit into a variety of lineups, be it win now or a rebuilding one. Rounding out the first round and our video is the Phoenix Suns using the Cavaliers pick to snag Arkansas guard Boogie Fland. Fland is a true freshman guard who came on really strong for Arkansas early, but suffered an injury that's kept him out for months. Luckily, he'll be able to make his return in March Madness. He's averaged 15 points so far with decent three-point shooting, and it's one of the best pure passer playmakers in this class, with nearly 6 assists to just 1.6 turnovers, and he ties it all together with pretty stingy defense. The Suns have gotten a slight point guard boost with Tyus Jones, but I think Fland adds to that even more and offers a more long-term option given Jones' contract situation.